Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. First of all, I want to thank everyone who has been hitting that subscribe button recently, or should I say smashing that subscribe button. I truly appreciate it, and also appreciate all the comments that are left by the regulars. Okay, so today we have 5 stories to share with you all. We're going to be hearing some stories from the good old United States and Canada. So, as you know, I'm always looking for great stories to be shared on this channel. If you have a story that you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your encounters to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Alright guys, I think you all know the drill. So go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on the couch or chair and sit back and relax. Okay, so this first one takes place in June, although the year is still being debated. It's either 2013 or 2014. It takes place in Pike County, Ohio, and the nearest town is Beaver. Now, the exact coordinates were provided, so I am giving it to you right here. On a summer day in 2013 or 2014, my dog, a miniature Italian greyhound, and I were driving on a back roads. I parked my car and was going to walk on top of the hill. My dog, which travels with me, wouldn't get out of the car, which was very odd. I walked to the top of the hill and I was looking down the gravel road ahead. At first, I didn't notice the creature. I started to turn, and that's when I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. When I turned my eyes back on the subject, I noticed it turning. It took a few steps and disappeared into the tree line. I saw the creature from the side. It was maybe about 7 foot tall. It had gray hair. The body was very thick and its arms hung about its knees. I couldn't see from his knees down, and I didn't notice any odor. My dog, normally is very active, would not get out of the car and acted very out of character. This next one takes place on May the 30th, 2021, and it takes place in Haywood County, North Carolina. The nearest town is Maggie Valley. And if you're ever in Maggie Valley, it looks like you should stop at Wheels Through Time Motorcycle Museum. My son and I had just finished watching the sunset on the Blue Ridge Parkway at the Masonic Marker. We were still sitting there watching the overview as a fog was rolling in. It was getting very cold, so we got into the car. I cranked the car up and started to back up and leave when a very dark, large figure ran across the road into the woods. It looked like a man. I turned towards the figure but couldn't see anything. It was entirely too large to be a black bear and definitely was not an elk. I haven't seen any at all this weekend. The figure was very black. The hairs on my arms and back of my neck stood up straight. I have never in my life been so afraid. This one takes place in the summer. It was July 15th, 2018, and it takes place in Alberta, Canada. The nearest town is Jasper. I was hiking in Jasper National Park in Indian Ridge. I walked to the edge of the ridge and proceeded to descend down by the gap, an opening in the ridge wall. Very few people take the path I did. As I reached the bottom of the scramble, I was in the beginning of the meadows. Again, since I was not on a marked trail, there was no path to follow. So I began walking across the meadows towards the other side. And upon the trail I was once on. A couple of minutes into my walk, I came upon what I believe is a footprint, a large footprint at that. The largest animal in that area is a grizzly bear, and the print does not resemble theirs for the shape or size. I continued walking along. About 30 minutes or so later, I stumbled upon what looked like a partial imprint of the same footprint, about the same size in length at least. I crossed the meadows completely and took a panoramic photo of the beautiful hike I just did. And while I was showing my boyfriend a rough area about where I saw the print, he noticed a black spot at the bottom of the ridge scramble. It looked like it could be some cave. It just seems a bit odd of a spot though, as the Jasper Tramway is a popular tourist spot. Although not very many make it to the Indian Ridge hike area, which begins further down the same mountain that it is on. Okay, so this one takes place June the 12th, 2018. It takes place in Alberta, Canada, and the nearest town is Bragg Creek. I had decided to go into Kananaskis County to take pictures of the setting sun behind the mountains. I had found a spot on Highway 66 where there was a pullout so that I could set up my tripod on firm ground. I had gotten there earlier than I needed to so that I could prepare my equipment. As I was sitting in my car waiting for the right amount of sunlight, I heard a wood knock, but I didn't think anything of it. The car was turned off, and I also heard a lot of birds. When I heard the second knock, I thought, okay, what is that? I then went to the back of my car, and I got out my baseball bat that I had in my vehicle. I then went and I did a wood knock myself, thinking, yeah, like I'm going to get a reply. About 2 minutes later, I got a knock, but it seemed to be a little closer. The first one was like 2 kilometers away, and this one was about 1 kilometer away. I then went and I hit a different tree to make it sound like I was a different one. This one was answered from even closer to me, like maybe 800 meters. I thought, great, I will try again, but delay on doing it right away. I did a knock and then I went back to my car to get my camera just in case. Nothing happened, so I grabbed my camera and I was walking across the road to see if I could see anything to take a picture of, or whatever was there, when a knock came from about 300 meters away. This was all happening on the north side of the road. I went back to my vehicle, I got the bat again, and I struck another tree. This time, I heard a scream howl from the south side of the highway, the side I was on, about 2 kilometers west, followed almost right away by another tree knock on the north side again, about 300 meters away. All of this happened between 9:45 and 10:45 at night. This was pretty much the end of all of this. Okay, guys, this is going to be the last story of the day. This one takes place on July 25th, 1997, and it takes place in Kitsap County, Washington. And the closest town is South Kingston. My boss and I work in forestry. We're in the field almost every day. We were working in this remote part of an Indian reservation forested allotment, where we were surveying property lines and getting them ready for timber harvest. Well, on this day, we were surveying the south side of this allotment heading east. We were measuring every 100 feet for a distance of 1,320 feet at approximately 11 a.m. when we kept hearing something following us either behind us or left or right. It stayed approximately 100 to 200 feet away from us. There was a stench, real heavy odor that we kept smelling near us. I kept blaming my boss that he had crapped his pants, and he kept accusing me of doing the same. He said, "There's only 2 of us out here, and I know I didn't do it." Well, anyway, we were taking a break from hacking through the bush with our machete, and we were leaning against this 200-plus old growth blowdown fir tree. I took a cigarette out and I lit up, and then there was this branch or twig breaking like something large walking through the underbrush about 120 feet away. I could not find any rocks to throw in that direction, but I found a U-shaped piece of wood that I threw near the spot where we heard the sounds. Take note of a piece of U-shaped wood because in another encounter a few years later and only a couple of months ago, I had that same piece thrown at me. It got quiet, like I said. It was cloudy and kind of dark under the tree canopy. The noise came from the other side of this large salmonberry bushes. Then all of a sudden, the clouds broke open and allowed some daylight through behind the bushes about 10 feet so that the 4 creatures that were watching us could see their own shadow. I told my boss, Mike, to take a look in that direction, but because of his bad eyesight, he could not see that well. There were 2 really big adult males, 1 skinny tall female with her shoulder-length hair, and she had a bad hump on her back. Her breasts were like a really old woman's, and she kept wringing her hands together as she was speaking to the other males. There was a child to her left that stood about 6 feet tall, but was dwarfed by the 3 larger adult creatures. The 2 males stood still motionless, and they watched me and did not talk much to the female that was doing most of the talking in her own dialect. The male seemed to motion to her to keep quiet. Then the clouds had covered up the rays of light, and it got dark again. My boss Mike could barely make out the shadows, but he tried to convince me that it was his boss Ken and some of the secretaries that he brought out into the woods. That is something he does at some times. Right after that, they kept following us, and my boss Mike got spooked and said, "Let's get out of here and come back next week to finish our survey." The creatures were almost 8 feet, except the child was 6 feet tall. They were covered in fur or hair, except for around their eyes and nose parts of their cheeks. One thing I did notice was I did not see any ears on their heads. The 2 large males were really huge, large, broad shoulders. The female was tall and thin with large humps on the back between her shoulder blades. Her breasts sagged near her waist. I have had several encounters. The one I had in June of 2000 made it to the local newspaper. Strange dialects sounded like Salish tribal language, except for when they started to panic, they sounded like monkeys or ape-type sounds. Whistles, stomping, lots of branches or tree snaps in half. One time I heard a loud bog-type howl and pounding on what sounded like on a tree. Okay, so there you have it. 5 great stories from both sides of the border, the States and Canada. So we got a little taste of everything that's been going around from 2021 to, what was the earliest date? 1997, I think it was. So we covered a span of time and area as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you guys have a story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you guys for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new. And guys, have a fantastic weekend. This is, after all, the Labor Day weekend, long weekend at that. Okay, so thank you guys. Enjoy your long weekend, and we'll see you all next week.